Hello everyone, this is Tim, and this is another installment of my Rolemaster Gamemaster Law series. Yeah, they're going on for a while, but whatever, I'm just going to keep talking, and feel free to tune out if you get bored. Two terms I want to talk about are metabolism and creative resources. Metabolism is described in this book as a measure of the power level of the game and the degree of control the GM is able to exert over the story and the PCs. And I've noticed that a lot more of the newer games tend to have a higher power level to them. I tend to have, like I think as Aaron Azurk83 mentioned, to start out small and have that heroic journey where you start out kind of as like, not really a nobody, but just like an average Joe, and it's through the experiences of adventure that you gain more experience and you become, you become a hero instead of just starting out as a hero. But again, depending on what kind of game or genre you're trying to play, that's not necessarily the case. But that's just usually what I like to do. The creative resources thing is basically the quality of detail and minutia that a GM can simultaneously create and coordinate. The idea is that if you do more prep, you can focus your time at the table to do other things. And again, this is where I guess I kind of fight with myself. I'm not really a big fan of prep, but there are certain games that prep seems more enjoyable to me, especially when you throw in a little random element in there. Like I'm not really sure, maybe there's a big table or something to roll up on, different types of monsters or treasure or something like that. For me, that makes it more enjoyable because I get inspiration, and the random elements sort of makes it more enjoyable for me. But other people like to craft stories, craft very detailed NPCs, and while I do like to do that, I don't think I like to do that as much as other people. I think sometimes I look at prep work as work. And I guess in a way it is, but for some it's a labor of love. They talk about understanding your strengths and weaknesses. This is something that Win just did in that 5 strengths and 5 weaknesses videos that he was doing. I need to do a response to that, but NPCs, it talks about them being one of the best tools to bring in role-playing and to engage your players and to get them into the game. Basically it goes into about how to make interesting NPCs, and I think I'm going to skip over some of this, but motivations, what sort of groups they belong to, and just fitting into the setting that you have created, or if you're using a published setting. Talks a lot about character design and how poor character design really can mess up an entire campaign, and how a GM should really be a part of that. Having a player show up with an already pre-made character without really any input from the GM, while not all the time backfires, I think it definitely can backfire if you're not really paying attention, or maybe even the player might have twisted a few things to be more beneficial for his character, and it becomes a problem character in the campaign itself. So it really is a good idea for a GM to be able to suggest things like, you might want to have a few more ranks in that knowledge local, or you might want to have some more ranks in gossip, or basically depending on what kind of campaign the GM wants to run, he can make suggestions so that the players don't put things that are never going to get used. If you're running an urban campaign, they're really not going to be out in the woods too much. So, things like tracking and survival are really just wasted space, wasted, character points, or whatever you're using for your system. Trying to prevent system abuse, the min-maxers, the loopholes in rules and such, that's something to watch out for as well. But there's lots of different ways they list for fleshing out PCs, making it interesting, making sure everyone has a stake in the story, has a little bit of skin in the game, and will have times when they'll be able to take that story share, take that spotlight time, and really enjoy themselves and have an interesting character to play with and interact with everybody else. And having each character have a way to find information out, or to gain information, or just to interact with the story to bring new things to the table. You know, someone that can track and find information that way, someone who can read books, and someone who has a lot of different languages. You know, there's all kinds of different ways for a character to bring something to the table so that everyone can share their information and hopefully come up with what is actually going on in the story. There's a big section on campaign design and how to start out, how to make a setting. You can make the setting and then the story can come from the setting, or you can make a story and then as the story progresses you can make the setting to fit whatever it is you want to happen in the campaign. Yeah, there's lots of details on fleshing out places, customs. You know, where most of the action happens in the setting is probably where you should set your campaign because it's just the most interesting. But again, depending on what kind of campaign you want to run, just find the best place in that setting to focus things. Most of my prep, I think, really should be in the setting, but again, there's different viewpoints on that as well, and if you can use some sort of random generator to produce things, you can do that too. There's notes on gods, the creation, magic, climate, vegetations, animals, monsters, races. It mentions that it might be a problem if the players know more about the setting than the GM does. And I would call these kind of players setting lawyers. So instead of rules lawyers, they just know the setting inside and out. And I've had some experience with people that would constantly correct the GM, interrupt the game, interrupt the flow of the actual role-playing that's going on because some small detail was incorrect. If you are one of these players that knows a setting that you're going to be playing in, try to be helpful to the GM and try not to be disruptive. Maybe outside of the game, or maybe just tell the GM, hey, if you ever need any questions on this setting, feel free to ask me because I know a little bit better than you. Just try to make sure that that doesn't become a problem. Talks about bending the system to the setting, and I totally agree with this. This is the way that I run things. You might, let's say generic RPGs. You have a generic RPG and you want to run, Ravenloft with it. How are you going to change that system to fit the setting? And depending on how you do it, it can work out very well, it can work out bad, you can look online, there's lots of free things to, different systems for different settings. But in the general sense, I tend to do that. I tend to bend the rules to fit the setting, to make the setting more alive and to give the setting some sort of crunch at times. House rules can help to, like I said, to basically make the system do what you want it to for the setting you're running. Players will take every inch of slack that you give them. If you give them something, they could use that to your own detriment. So just be careful what you give them. This is something like Alikov was talking about the other day, where he gets really excited and he lets the cat out of the bag. And Wynn was saying, just keep that cat in the bag and keep those secrets close to your chest and just reveal a little bit at a time and don't give out too much information. It talks a lot about things that are going on behind the scenes. This is like the visible scope is what's going on that the characters can see, and there's the scope that's actually behind the scenes, sort of, where this country's going to war with this country, and there's a plague over here, and it's good. I think this is where I could probably improve on my prep work, where I would figure out what is going to happen in the setting regardless of what the players do. Maybe a comet comes in and there's all sorts of religious discussion about it. Maybe there is some sort of new race that shows up on the shore somewhere. Things like that you really could do ahead of time, and I think that stuff would be interesting. I just have to motivate myself to actually do that. Talks a lot about examining player reactions. Things like participation, enjoyment, and feedback. You just have to kind of was everyone involved? What were they doing? Was there any sort of reaction that a certain player gave to something that you did that was either good or bad? And really, this can all be summed up to just try to observe things. Try to see what's going on at the table. Not what you think is going on at the table. Try to, see behind the veil, I guess. And again, this is where that feedback can help out. You might think, a certain player loves combat. Maybe he doesn't actually love combat. Maybe he just loves, interacting with the other characters, and they are only interested in combat, so that's the only case he has to that's the only thing that he can do with them, that they really interact with him. So ask around, see what's going on. It'll really improve your GMing abilities. Talks about GM burnout. Basically, examining your own personal reactions to things. Don't have a blind eye or a deaf ear to the feelings that you have when you run a game. There's a lot of responsibility and pressure and weight at times on the person that's running the game. It can be difficult. So listen to yourself. Maybe there's things you could do differently that would help you out. And I think this is really what comes down to the GM style. You might be like, for instance, I'm a very high improv GM. I think at times that actually does stress me out because I'm depending so much on inspiration to get me through the session that if I get that, like if I get writer's block or that inspiration, that river, runs dry, that could be kind of stressful. I have 6 people staring at me, not really sure what's happening because, I need a break or I need to figure out what's going to happen next. So listen to yourself. Listen to how you feel and just figure out if there's a better way to do it. Identify inconsistencies with yourself. It talks about long-term campaigns and how you should be careful about giving out too much gold, too many powerful magical items. Don't give them the keys to the city, in other words, too early on. Things like this are keeping the PCs poor, rewarding good XP, or good art role-playing with XP, and that larger stories are made up of small ones. So little stories just pile on top of each other until you really have a good campaign. Talks about player options, how there's lots of player options out there. Try to keep these, this can be tough. While you want to give your players lots of options, sometimes too many options can really distract a player or make them indecisive. Like, for instance, if you're running a campaign and there's only 4 classes, some might complain that's not enough options, but it'll tone down the time, it'll cut down the time it'll take them to make a character. If you have 60 classes and 70 races, it might be a long time before they have a character because they're going to have to go through all those different options and see what's best for them. So as a GM, just think about that. What both ends of the scale. What's too little, what's too much, how many books, how many splat books am I going to allow into my campaign? Is more options actually better, or is that actually going to stress out the players to some extent? So it talks about that. It says that players can be frustrated if there's not enough choice. So finding some sort of happy medium is probably a good idea. Struggle. It talks about letting the characters struggle a little bit. Don't give them too much success all the time. Yes, you have to listen to the dice. Yes, you have to play by the rules. But by setting up the adventure and setting up the different encounters, struggle is a good thing because it's okay to fail. And when you fail, it lets you kind of come back from that, and you can look back and say, this is where I was, not 2 weeks hence, and now I'm standing beside the king, and I have all this glory for this whatever message that I delivered, whatever your story is about. But highs and lows, just think about that. Think of like a roller coaster, where at times they're going to be riding on the very, very crest, and other times they're going to be just scraping by at the very bottom. But that's where drama comes in. It's the human condition, the human story. There are suggestions for keeping the game moving if there's endless discussions about very minor things like a messenger shows up or things happen in the setting, to either get them moving or make them make a choice a little bit quicker. But you have to give the players enough time to discuss things, otherwise they'll feel rushed, and that might be stressful for some people. Remember how the story that you're running affects the setting. Think about the butterfly effect, where if you do something in a setting, it might have repercussions that you would never even imagine. And I think this really comes down to the idea, it's a very simple idea, but every choice has consequences. There's going to be good consequences and bad consequences. And I would even think you could probably replace alignment with something like that, but that's a different discussion. Talks about the gaming environment and how some things are more suitable for running a game than others. There's things like controlling your group, trying to get them all to stay in character. And this book is very interesting in that respect. There's lots of references to staying in character and how that is the best way to go about role-playing. Whether or not that's the case or not, I'm kind of more of a jovial player. I like to have a little bit more out of character, not really discussion, but little one-liners every once in a while, and just I want to enjoy myself too. I really do enjoy the social atmosphere of the game. That being said, I also like to role play and stay in character. So, each group is different. Do whichever you think is best for your group. Keeping the group in control and on task can sometimes reduce the fun. So just be careful. Don't, again, just find out what you think is best for your group. There's things like active control and passive control for keeping them all in line. I don't know if I'll go too much into detail here. Talks a lot about presentation, just the atmosphere, the way you go about doing things at the table. Also, there's a very interesting thing in here talking about perspective and people perceiving things differently depending on where they are locationally. People perceive things differently because of their training. I call this like the blue car effect. If you have a blue car, you suddenly notice that there's all kinds of blue cars everywhere. Things like I have a house, so now I notice all the for sale signs where I didn't notice them before. I have a garden, I notice gardens in people's yards. Things like that, where it's not just a simple spot check. Depending on the character's background, you really could give them different information than other characters have. And don't forget that NPCs are the same way. Their perspective can be different depending on their knowledge. A fighter who went to military college will look at a thing differently than a wizard that has his nose in arcane rituals all of his life. There is secret knowledge that it talks about, where one character might know something, and you can kind of bet that at least one character is not going to share, but that's something I think can really bring about good memories. Well, I gave this one character the information that would have saved the world, and he did nothing with it. And you can kind of just smile and think, well, oh well, that was the game. That's how it turned out. Communication talks a lot about too. Choosing your words carefully, how you talk, what words you actually use, and if those words are understandable to your players. Because if your players don't understand you, what's the point? Ideas for people that don't pay attention. That character that something's happening, or that player that something's happened to his character, he's not even paying attention, and you just start throwing out some subtle ideas and things, and I don't know, there's different techniques for trying to get people to stay focused. Gestures, facial expressions, using sound effects with your voice. I played a lot of G.I. Joes when I was a kid, and I still make sound effects all the time. My wife constantly makes fun of me. I think role-playing has helped with that too. Things like props, protocol, etiquette, being descriptive, and just making sure that they know what valuable clues are in the area. There's lots of information in this book. It really is a great book. It talks about masking and not revealing too much information. Misleading characters and then bringing them back around again. Talks about NPCs and describing them. I always think of video games when I look at this section, where if you don't describe 50 NPCs that are in a room, but you describe one in very great detail, the players are going to know that that's the NPC that you want them to talk to. It's almost like the little question mark or little thing above their head that if you're playing a video game, oh, that's the person that can actually talk. They have some dialogue, So try to just describe everyone pretty fairly and decide, or let the players decide what person they're going to talk to. Rolling dice randomly to keep the players on their toes. Yeah. I'll go into another video and talk about some more stuff. Alright, I'll see you guys there.